How long does it take to evict a tenant in Ontario? My name's Daniel Hale. I'm a licensed real estate agent in Ontario, and I help a ton of landlords sell their tenanted properties and manage them. So this is something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I bet you have scoped out Reddit, Facebook, Google. You've seen a ton of stories and people telling you in Ontario to evict a tenant, it takes years. Thankfully, I'm here to tell you that that is a lie. However, it still is a lengthy process. But all those horror stories that you've heard about it taking multiple years, that's absolutely false. It does not take years if you do it right. If you hear stories of it taking years, it's because somebody probably filed their paperwork wrong, or they didn't go about the eviction process properly, and the landlord and tenant board probably didn't grant it to them, so they had to start all over again. So if you do things right, you file right, you abide by the landlord and tenant board, and you do everything right, you are looking at about 8 to 9 months worst case scenario. Let me explain. You might be wanting to serve an N12 notice of eviction because you've sold the property, or you want it back for your personal use. You might want to give them an N4 for non-payment of rent, or maybe an N5 because they're damaging your property or something along those lines. If that's the case, the reason why it could take 9 months is this. You serve the notice, let's call it an N12, the tenant has 60 days to move out. They might abide by it. I've seen tenants abide by it, and they think and see and agree that it is lawful, so they choose to move out and find a new place. Now, if the tenant does not choose to move out within that 6 months, they do have the right to stay and go to a landlord and tenant board hearing, which some tenants will do this. So when you're serving your notice to the tenant, whatever one that is, and you're looking for the eviction, you must file to the landlord and tenant board at the same time so that you can get yourself a hearing in case the tenant does not abide by the notice and they want to go to a landlord and tenant board hearing. Or maybe they don't even want to go, they want to kick the ball down the street and just stay as long as they can. So you give the notice to the tenant, you file to the landlord and tenant board. At the time of this video in Ontario, we are seeing hearings happen within 4 to 5 months. So if I file in January, I can expect a hearing around March, latest May. Seeing this every day, we do this every day, so trust me on that. Now, when you go to the landlord and tenant board hearing, let's say you win your eviction. The adjudicator and the landlord and tenant board always gives the tenant some time after that, depending on the circumstance. Most of the time, it's within 30 days or 60 days that they give them. They don't give them anything that's astronomical, especially if they see the tenant's already had 4 to 5 months and they stayed and everything you did was lawful. Then they will only give them about 30 days to move out, sometimes 60, depending if they have young kids or what their scenario is. Here's the thing though, that doesn't mean you're gonna get the eviction now within that 30 to 60 days. So now you're about 5-6 months in. What can happen is the tenant can still not listen even though you got the eviction order, and they can go past the eviction date. If they go past that eviction date, what ends up happening is you now have to take the order, the eviction order that was given to you by the landlord and tenant board, and you have to file it to the sheriff. The sheriff will then give you a timeline. Every city is a little bit different, but most of the time it's within 6 weeks. And within that 6-week period, the sheriff will then go to your property, they will evict the tenant, tell the tenant has to leave, they'll change the locks, and the tenant has 72 hours to get all of their stuff. Otherwise, it is now deemed as the landlord's stuff, the tenant is gone, and you get your property back. Maybe that is about 6 to 7 months. Now here's the thing. The reason why I told you it could go 9 months is because of this. The tenant might not show up to the first hearing, or if they do, they might be extremely savvy, they might be a professional tenant is what I call them, and they might actually file a notice to appeal against the decision that was made. Here's the other problem. Tenants also have the right in Ontario to file a notice to appeal the order one time. If they do file this notice, the landlord and tenant board will then give them another hearing, which happens fairly quickly. It's not another 4 to 5 months. it's about another month. Then what happens is you go to that hearing, and within the first 15-20 minutes that hearing starts with your time slot, the tenant has to explain to the adjudicator why he feels it was unlawful and why he feels he should stay. He has to convince them that the decision made was wrong. If he cannot convince them, the adjudicator will still stick to the same decision, give them another 30 days or whatever that is, give or take a little, and they will get evicted again. So the reason why in Ontario, if the tenant's a professional tenant, this can take up to 9 months is because you have your 4 to 5 months for your hearing. The tenant can then appeal that hearing, and then you have the sheriff. Now, we've done this many times because of what we do, and the truth is I've only actually seen the sheriff come twice, and I'd say that's a pretty good ratio, and I'll tell you why. Because tenants don't want to be homeless. They don't want to get evicted, have a sheriff show up and have nowhere to go. It's not a good thing for them. It's not a good thing for anybody. You don't want to go there with the sheriff. It's a sad thing. So it's rare that happens. They usually will leave earlier. Sometimes tenants will leave right after the first hearing and they actually get the eviction notice because they realize that's it, it's done. So all these timelines can be different. Sometimes you say to your tenant, you know, I'll give you some cash for keys, and you move out. They'll take the 60 days, they'll take 90 days, whatever that is. But if they're really not cooperative, sometimes it can take 4 or 5 months, worst case scenario, 9 months, maybe 10. But the truth is, you're not gonna get stuck waiting 2 years. It just doesn't happen. And if you have any issues for any of these reasons that we just spoke about, you need help with your tenant or managing your property, we do have a team of paralegals that can assist you and help you get this done. Just shoot me an email, send me a text, or give me a call, and make sure you subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.